Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how to create something that looks like a fine art picture that you could, hang in a gallery. So we've got a smoke trail image and we're going to edit the smoke trail image first of all in Adobe Camera Raw, which is 14.2. Exactly the same in Lightroom. You could do the same in Lightroom. Either way, you'll have the same sliders. But then we're going to take it into Photoshop and we're going to give it more of a... First of all, looking over the different things that we've got in the basic tab. So if you can't see that, just click the basic tab there to see the basic settings. And first of all, the exposure. We always check the histogram. And you can see that, okay, it's showing that I'm just got a little bit of shadow clipping, hardly any. I'm not too worried about that because it's basically black and that's why all the information's over to the left hand side. The right hand side, we've hardly got any information and we are not clipping at all in that area. So what I'm going to do first of all is to bring the exposure up. And I'm going to bring that up quite high, so we're bringing back the smoke, and you can see I've got no clipping now in any area. I'm going to take the blacks down a little bit because I want to make sure that that remains quite dense. I don't want anything showing on the background except black. And now I'm going to bring the highlights down just a little bit, just a tiny bit, to bring back a bit of detail where I want it. Okay, next thing. The main things that I do, especially with an image like this, is I use the exposure first of all, then I take down the highlights that bit, and then if I need to bring the exposure up a little bit, I'll use the whites, but making sure that I'm not clipping on the histogram. I just want to bring a bit more brightness back, but you don't have to. That's, you get it to the level that you want. But those are the three main ones to get your basic exposure correct on this. Now, what we can also do, if I'm going to zoom in on this, I can also add a little bit of texture. I can add a little bit of clarity. And the dehaze. Now the dehaze you can drag to the left to bring a little bit more detail of the smoke back in, or you can remove some detail by going to the right, and that works quite hand in hand. If I bring a bit back this way, so I'm coming slightly over to the left, I can use that with a clarity to counterbalance the two to get exactly what I want there. Might bring the texture up a little bit, and I'm fairly happy with that. That's looking good. Also, from the original image I have cropped this. So for those who came along to my lesson, the first thing we did was to use the crop tool. So the crop tool is located up here, and just crop the image down. I've already done that in this case, so no need to do that. Let's go back to there. Okay, so we've now got the settings how we want them. The next thing is you could change the temperature and the tint, and that will tint your image. And you see when sometimes when you do that, you can see things coming into the background that you couldn't see before. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to make sure that I bring the blacks down so that disappears and goes out of view, because I don't want any colour showing on the background. And so if you was going with that colour, that's what you'd have to do. I actually want to change it and take it to blue, but you can play about with these. You can got all different colours you can create by combining the two together. I'm going to take mine into the blues a little bit. I'm quite happy with that, so I'm going to open that. So I'm going to open it into Photoshop, and now I'm going to double click the hand tool just to make it fit the screen, which I'll be doing as we work along. Okay, so next stage we go to the layers, and I'm going to duplicate this layer. Then I'm going to click back on the background layer. Now make sure you have got the word background. We did have a problem with one student in the class where they was getting the word layer there and it was 00. If you've got anything but background, right click on the background, on the image, whether it says layer or whatever, right click on it and flatten the image. And if you do that, then you will get this locked background, and that's important. You need that. Then we go to image. What we're going to do is we're going to put a border around this, a coloured border. So for that, it's not image size, it's canvas size. So the size of the canvas. What's important in this case is that we've got the relative box with the tick. So if you haven't got the tick there, make sure you click that on, because we want to add to the outside of the image and not the whole image. So we've also got these anchors. Now we will be using those after, but at the moment we don't. All we do is we're increasing, making sure we've got pixels. In this case, I'm going to try 200, and this is, you know, guesswork. It depends on what size your image is. So if that's too big for your image, just undo what you do, go to edit, undo after you've done it, and then put in a different size. It allows you then to see the size and to give you a better guess of what you actually need. Okay, so I just need to click on OK. I'd selected also white for the background colour on that, which I didn't show you, but you'll see the box if you go back a little bit. I can show you on the next one. What I'm now going to do is to add, let's just click the hand tool, double click the hand tool there. That's the effect we got. But what I want to do is to add a little bit more at the bottom, but nowhere else. So I want to add a bit more border to the bottom edge there. And to do that, we go back to image and canvas size. And this time we use this anchor. Now you can see the canvas extension color there. So that's where you can change to all the colors. We wanted white, so that's how you would change your color if you wanted to. We're going to change it anyway without doing that, so don't worry about that. Okay, so now what we've got is these anchor points. Now, it's important you click on the right one. The middle top one, if we click on there, you can see it puts the point there, it anchors the top. So that means it will not allow anything to go above that area. So the width, you can see, would come out, and it would also go down this way. So you can go outwards or you can go down. And obviously if you're going outwards, that would be the width. But we just want to apply to the bottom, so I can type in the height, and that will then just allow me to go this way, directly down. So with the height, I'm going to put in another 200, and then we click on OK. So that's the important one. Click on that area there. And if I double click the hand tool now so you can see all the image, you can see we've added this extra space at the bottom because we're going to put a name tab on there after with your name on. Okay, now we go back to the background copy. Again, I'm changing things slightly to what I've done in the physical lesson. What I'm going to do with this is I'm going to invert the colours of this top layer. So to do that, I go to Image, Adjustments and Invert, which is halfway down there. And that just inverts the colours, so now we've got white basically on white. Now what I want to do now, I've got this white background, is I want to change the colour of that. So I'll come down to background and we're going to add a new layer. So click on the new layer button at the bottom there. So we've got a layer in between, and we're going to put in a new colour on this. So I'll click on the foreground colour box, and I do want grey, so I'm going to make sure that I drag in this area and I drag right to the left towards the centre, so I'm getting a mid-range grey, and then I click on OK. Now that doesn't change this, we've physically got to add that colour to it, and we do that by using the paint bucket tool. So you click on the paint bucket tool, click on the image, and that will colour that in and make that grey. Now the grey now is a little bit darker than what I want, but that's good, because what I can do now is I can change the opacity and take this down a little bit until I get the grey that I want. So it gives me more control. If I just try to guess the colour I want, you know, that's it, you're guessing. But now I've got the advantage that I can change the opacity, and I don't want it too dark, I just want it fairly light so it looks more arty, not quite so contrasty, so it blends in nice. And then I'll click back on the background copy layer, so right at the top. And what we're going to do now is to apply an effects to this. So an effects to the layer. So you can see on the layers palette you've got the word effects there. These are the different ones. And we're going to go right to the bottom and click on drop shadow. And looking at that, I'm going to take the shadow angle to the other side. So I'm going to click on this side around 10 o'clock, about 147, something like that. That's going to be exact. And again, you could select whatever you want. You can change the distance. So that will change the distance of the shadow. You can add more spread. You can change the size. So you can do all those things, and also the opacity. Now I'm going to bring the distance down a little bit. I don't want it too far. I'm going to bring the spread down because I want this to be quite a mild effect. I'm going to bring the size down a little bit. So I want something quite slight. I'm just going to go with that. So I'll click on OK. And there we go, we've got that. Okay, next, I'm actually going to do that again. Now, again, in the physical lesson, we went from one to the other on that part, and we put another effect on there. But what I'm going to do this time is to actually do it in two stages, just to simplify it. So having applied that effect, I can go back to the effects there, and now I'm going to use what am I going to use? Bevel and Emboss, sorry. There we are. So I'll click on Bevel and Emboss. Now this gives it like a curved edge as such. And we've got different styles on there. And you can select any. The outer bevel probably isn't the best one for this. So we probably want an inner bevel, or you can select Emboss. You've got Pillow Emboss. And Stroke Emboss. So all different ones. I'm going to go with Pillow Emboss, and I'm going to use a soft chisel edge in this case. You can use smooth, or I'm just going to go with that effect. And I've got the size at 32. You can alter that, you can make it bigger, but I don't want too strong an effect on this, so it's going to be quite small. So around 32 is what I selected, and I've softened it quite a bit. You can take that down, make it an harder edge if you want. That's entirely up to you. I want it quite soft, so I'm going to go to there. You can change the depth on there, which we've done. So that's on 84 in my case. Again, that's entirely up to you. You've got the shadow mode, which is on multiply. You can change that, but I want it quite low. Let's just go, I'm going to go to about 39, and I'm going to click on OK. So two different styles we've got on there. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add the text. So we use the text. So it's the horizontal type tool that we need. And you can select whatever font you want for this. I've picked one on here called Bickham Script Pro. You could select whatever you want. It's entirely up to you. The size I'm using for this is on 48. And the colour, I'm going to change to black. So I've clicked on the colour at the top there. I'm going to use black. And I'm making sure that we've got the alignment on centre. That just helps me click roughly in the middle and type in my name. Would use a capital A for that, wouldn't I? There we go. Much better at Photoshop than I am at typing. Okay, so then I click the tick. I've completed what I want. We can move that by clicking on the move tool. You could resize it slightly as well if you want to. You could make it bigger or smaller. You can move it around, and you can see in this case I've got the guidelines on, and that allows me to see where the centre is, so I know it's dead centre. If I click on the tick on the options bar, then I can use the cursor keys on the keyboard to tap it up or down to get the alignment much more precise. Okay, so that's a nice thing to do when you just want to move it a little bit. Use your cursor keys on your keyboard. As long as you've got the move tool on, you'll be able to do that. I'm just going to click on any one of the tools now just to take off the highlight around that so you can see the completed thing. Almost, because what I'm now going to do on the text, is I'm going to apply an effect on there. Now you can rasterize this first, so in other words change it to a bitmap, which allows you to do some things that you wouldn't be able to do with a vector text layer. So I might actually do that first. I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to rasterize the type. So that just changes that vector text mode into a picture, if you want to put it like that, a bitmap picture. So now I can't edit the text, I can't do anything with it text wise, but I can apply things to it that I wouldn't be able to apply with it in vector form. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to add an effects to that, and I'm going to select stroke, and I want the stroke to be small in this case. Now it depends on the width of your font for the effect that I'm going to create. So I need it to be on 4. If you've got a wider font you could use a slightly bigger size, doesn't matter, it's trial and error. So I'm going to click on OK. Now it doesn't look great now, it looks a bit blocky, don't it? That's because we've put a stroke on it, which is like a line. But what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the difference between opacity and fill. Now if I click on the opacity for the layer and take that down, you'll see that it gets lighter and lighter until it fades out completely. Yep. Now if I click just off there and I go to the fill and I click that, watch what happens. So the effects that I've put on stops there, but the fill of the effect changes. So I can do two things now. I'm going to bring that up just a little bit, so I've got a tiny bit of fill in there, so I'm at 20%, and I'm going to take the opacity down a little bit, just a little bit, to give this much more subtle effect. So you can see that if you've got a layer effects on there, that's what the fill does. It takes down the fill but leaves the layer effects there, and you can vary the two to get the style that you want. So quite a nice handy little tip that to get more arty with your pictures. Okay, so now I've completed that, I can right click, I can flatten the image, and now we can save that as a bitmap or whatever we want to do with it. And you've created your bit of fine art, so off you go, have a play. All the best from me, Les Arnott.